All right. Okay. Welcome to the 30th episode of the ConunDRUM podcast. Um, as I've said before, I plan on keeping this thing going and bringing in lots of amazing guests. Up until now, I focused on primarily Atlantic Canada, and that will continue as a priority. But there are some people from outside the region that I want to bring in. So from time to time, I will be branching out. And I guess this episode is kind of the start of that. I've been a fan of this person for a very long time. Really tried my best to not fanboy out. So we'll see how that turned out. I've always respected and appreciated his style and approach to music. We kind of get into the punk rock roots a little bit. We talk about the early days of professional wrestling, like before it became like the mainstream WWF, WWE now, I guess. And there's so many other questions that I had that I wanted to ask that we didn't get to because I wanted to be respectful of his time. And but we did chat about one of the things that I admire most about him, and that is how he speaks up and calls out people on their bullshit. By that I mean, like, calling out homophobia, racism, sexism, and those are things that absolutely need to be squashed. I mean, we're 2023 anyway. I don't want to spoil the episode, so or bore you with my introduction. So please enjoy my conversation with the Mango Kid himself, Danko Jones.
Hello?
Hello, I can hear you.
Yeah, I can hear you too. Just gonna put this here. How's it going?
Uh, Fantastic. How are you doing?
Good, good, good. Can you see me or no?
No, I don't. Oh, there you
Oh,
are.
there you go.
I can
Okay.
see you now. Awesome. I really appreciate you doing this, man. When I when I ask anyone, I always feel like will they, won't they, or and sometimes you just roll the dice, and sometimes you get to talk to some really cool people. So appreciate it. I don't know if you're aware of the podcast at all, or I know Rich was on. You,
Just that Rich was on. That was
yeah,
about it. I don't know too much about it.
and I know you don't do a whole lot of interviews and stuff like that, and the whole music biz and all that kind of stuff. So this podcast is more. It was kind of birthed out of when COVID hit and we were all in lockdown. Um,
Hmm.
I play in a band, and playing in clubs and stuff where that's really how you get to meet people and you know discover peers and find new bands and stuff. And so just the whole losing gigs really sucked. Um, so I wanted to find a way to just kind of create that green room and still be able to meet people and have conversations and build that community. So that's kind of where the idea for the podcast was.
Okay.
So yeah, and it's just to find out more about the arts and kind of what inspires people and I don't dig into like personal stuff and dirt and all that kind of crap because I don't have time for that, and nobody really does. And you know so it's just more or less that.
Okay.
So yeah, I didn't take a whole lot of notes because I just want to have a chat, kind of thing. There's a few things that I want to kind of pick your brain about, but nothing too crazy. um so with that being said, I've been a fan of yours for quite a while. And I think part of what drew me to your music was, while being rock and roll, it still had that one foot in the punk rock world. um
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, so just the whole energy and especially the live shows, that's what really drew me. Some of the YouTube stuff, like with live concerts and stuff like that. um do you still feel like you're in that punk world?
Punk is a very big word that encompasses a lot of different sounds and a lot of different bands that, on first listen, might be 180 degrees away from each other. So, the difference between the Clash and the Ramones is already that's a big difference. And then you incorporate hardcore and garage punk. I mean, those are two different worlds too. So
Hmm.
we came out of the garage punk scene in the mid to late '90s. It was a huge scene. Um, I mean, it doesn't exist anymore, but back then, I mean, there was so many bands, and we got inspired by them. Then, of course, bands like the Hives and the White Stripes went overground, and and us as well,
Hmm.
and the scene kind of died. Um, but bands like the Oblivions and the Gories and the Makers and the New Bomb Turks and the John Spencer Blues Explosion and all that stuff uh, was really kind of the scene that we were birthed out of, and that had a lot to do with punk rock. But if you ask some kid who's into NoFX or MXPX, they won't understand if it's punk rock. So
Yeah.
asking me if we're still in the punk rock scene, yeah, I mean we incorporate. I consider ourselves like a at our heart we're still a garage punk band, but we also embrace the aesthetic of hard rock, and uh it's a completely different sound to garage punk, even though they're both guitar based.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, yeah, in heart and soul, of course, always. And that's
Yeah.
how, I mean, I'll always be like that,
Yeah.
And as a person, I mean, influence in punk goes beyond just the music and the sound. I mean, it's for a lot of lost people.
Hmm.
It informed them as to their moral compass, So yeah, like it's always going to be a part of me.
Yeah. 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 Growing up, I got introduced to, like the NoFX and, Rancid and all that stuff and the California side. And then discovering, the punk from the East Coast, like Black Flag and like the DC punk and, it definitely
Well,
informed a lot of,
Black Flag were actually from California. Rollins was from DC.
right.
Um, so yeah, and that's just, I mean, that goes to show you, and even within the Black Flag discography, I mean, it just goes off the rails at the end.
Yeah. Yeah.
So punk means a lot of different things to a lot of people. Um, so yeah, I mean, yeah, I just a lot, yeah, and it depends on your entry point with punk rock. So you're saying NoFX is your entry point, but my entry point is like Minor Threat and Bad Brains.
Hmm.
And Cro-Mags and Black Flag. So Rollins era is kind of what I like, from
Yeah.
Damaged onwards, which is not what a lot of people like. So that's, yeah. So it's so widespread when you say the word punk,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
and
Because I
also
mean,
7 seconds. 7 seconds. I mean, 7 seconds sound completely different than the Cro-Mags and Minor Threat as well, but it was from that time as well,
yeah.
or
Yeah.
around
Yeah.
that time. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Forgive me. I forget who I'm talking to. I know like you're a huge audiophile and have a massive collection and a wealth of knowledge as far as,
Not really. Not
well, I
really.
mean,
I mean, I'm just
comparatively.
old.
Well, I wouldn't say that you're much older than I am, if much at all.
But the thing is, with punk rock, it's always the youth that steer the ship,
Yeah.
and so it always feels like it's fresh and new, and people forget about the old stuff, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. Um,
Like
yeah.
at the same time, I mean, I I I really love bands like Turnstile. Um, so and Stiff Richards and all these new bands. So
Hmm.
it's and they take from older bands as well. So
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, that's always going to be, we're always going to borrow from our influences and then translate that into our own vocabulary to then put it out, right? Like as a drummer myself, like I steal licks from everybody until they become my own licks, and then I figure out how I'm going to incorporate them into, what project I'm doing at the time,
mhm,
and I think as musicians, as artists, that's, it's the world around you that influences all of that.
mhm.
So, whatever your background is, yeah, for sure. So growing up in Toronto, as a young person, when did music kind of light that spark? Like when did you
Um,
get exposed to wanting to play music, I should say?
Probably when I was 6 and I discovered Kiss and joined the Kiss Army. And but then it was always there, And then when I was a teenager, I got into well, when I was a preteen, I got into metal, and then when I was a teenager, I kind of segued into punk rock, but always was a metalhead.
Mhm.
Um, and then when I was, in university, I kind of expanded my ear through punk rock, helped a lot, and started working at a college radio station, and then met people. And I went to university for film, but I actually really just learned about all kinds of bands and stuff
Mhm.
and music. So at the college radio station there. So
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, college radio definitely, has a wide variety of, genres and at the
mhm,
college I went to here, we didn't have college radio. It was like a small community college. I come
mhm,
from a small town that amalgamated into a bunch of like a bunch of towns in the area kind of joined in to become a municipality, like a city. Um,
mhm.
so a lot of what informs us comes out of the larger cities, but it takes like forever to get here, you know.
Yeah.
So is there anything, well, I guess if we're talking about big city influence into rural communities, is there anything that you're seeing now, like that's trending now that you can see kind of expanding further into like other places?
No, I mean, I don't know. I'm not on the pulse of what's cool anymore just because it's part of getting older is you like what you like. And every now and then, like, for example, like I mentioned earlier, Turnstile will kind of turn your head and you just go, what's that?
Mhm.
So, um, there's bands that float my way now and then, but they have to be huge. I mean, Turnstile is a band that everybody knows. I'm not throwing out some obscure underground band. They're like
Yeah, yeah.
they're like one of the most popular new punk rock bands out there. Um, so I do manage to listen to a lot of music, but new music, but there's also a lot of old music that I haven't even gotten to yet. So I'm always mostly I'm playing a lifetime game of catch up, trying to listen to all kinds of musics that I just never had the time to before.
Hmm. Yeah, I I find myself like when I said I guess my entry point was no effects, and then I went back into the stuff that happened before that. I'm still doing that now. Like there's bands that I'm just now becoming not aware of, but just getting the time to actually dig into their catalogs.
Mm-hmm.
Like Bad Religion. I was a Bad Religion fan back in the day, but I didn't really like get it until now that I'm older and I can understand a lot of what was being said, a lot of the lyrics that didn't make much sense to me as a kid. And, I was too busy, skateboarding and trying to play music to, get the dictionary out and find out, what's he saying here kind of thing. Um,
Right.
but going back and going through the whole catalog now, they're like one of my favorite bands that I wish I had listened to back in the day, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And their new stuff is fantastic. And I hope they keep going, I think they will, but as far as like your discography, 'cause I know like Power Trio was just nominated for a Juno last year, which congrats on the nomination. I thought it was deserving of album of the year, definitely. It was it was in my top three of albums for the whole year.
Oh, cool.
Um,
Thanks.
and so I'm really looking forward to what comes next. Do you find you're always kind of as soon as the album's out, it's already in the rear view and you're moved on to something else?
Uh, I mean, yeah, in the sense that by the time it's released, we've all heard it between the three of us like 100,000 times. So in a way, it's already old news to us. But that's because we probably have lived with it in one form or another for a year before anyone hears it. Um, but no, I don't. really start writing anything on guitar until, you get the word or it's time to write a new record. So I don't I don't really I don't really do that. I should, keep writing through the year or
Mhm.
through the time in between. Um, but yeah, it just doesn't work out that way. I don't know
Yeah.
why.
Well, I
But
think sometimes
yeah,
maybe, you could play yourself out that way. If you're not taking the time away from doing it, then you're kind of, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? You're just gonna like phase out of it. Like you're gonna lose the passion to want to do it.
yeah. I mean, yeah. But at the same time, I'd rather just keep writing because when we finish a recording session, I do really feel like I can keep writing another record.
Hmm.
Every single record we've done, but you know, there's so much stuff to do after the recording is finished. We have to tour, we have to, start to promote the new album. You gotta tour it, you gotta do, yeah, the artwork, and all these little details take up time from just like clearing your schedule and just concentrating on
Hmm.
writing, which
Yeah.
is what happens when you're writing a record. Like you can't write on the road. I
Hmm.
can't, at least. I can't. And every most things that we've come up while on the road have never made it onto an album. So
Okay. So it's just sort of, jamming just to keep those creative juices flowing kind of thing.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. So when you are writing an album or writing new music, eh, you're not locking yourself in a room and kind of presenting a completed song to the band. Are you more collaborating with the other two?
I mean, most of the time it works with like I'll come up with some riffs and some melody lines to it. Maybe there's a lyric here or there, or if I'm ahead of myself, and then I kind of arrange it on a garage band. I'll just come up with a loose arrangement, send it to JC, and then the next day I'll get it back completely arranged differently,
Right.
and then we proceed from there. I mean, that's just usually how it is. He's really good at arranging songs.
Hmm.
So he takes whatever guitar riff I come up with, and then he'll mix and match it and usually his arrangements, I'd say 95% of the time, end up on the album. The arrangement is basically how it is,
Really?
and then sometimes he'll throw in an extra part here and there. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, cool. So Rich being the seventh drummer, something like that.
One,
Somewhere around there.
2, 3, 4, uh, 5, 6. Yeah, he's the seventh drummer. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, which all of your drummers have been, phenomenal. At least the ones that I've seen. I'm sure there's some that I didn't get to listen to or hear, that were kind of quick in and out. But out of all of them, and there's definitely certain parts that they play that I'm just like, God damn, that's cool. But for me, especially in the last, four four albums, Rich is kind of that guy. I don't know if it's the chemistry between the three of you, just from my entry point into the band, which was pre-Adam. Um, it's kind of that KFC secret herbs and spices thing. The lineup that you have now, I find, is just incredibly strong, and there's definitely a show that happens, with the three of you that I think is really special.
Yeah, I mean, Rich, first of all, has been in the band the longest of all those drummers.
Yeah.
And I think he's the best of all of them. So that's lucky. Um, the worst would be like, yeah, Rich is okay, but man, that one guy, too bad that didn't work out.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's actually, in a way, we had to go through all those six drummers to find Rich, and the
Mhm.
chemistry on and off stage being probably more important,
Most important.
is
Yeah.
yeah, is what keeps it going. And yeah, his choices are great. Don't I basically go by, if nothing sticks out to me, I don't say a word. like if there's so his choices are fit the song perfectly.
Mhm.
So I got no complaints in that department. And then live, I mean, definitely has what it takes to be on stage, and the performance aspect of it is
Mhm.
all there, and and then interaction with people and stuff is great too. So
Yeah.
um, it's hard to come by, as we've witnessed through 7 drummers.
Mhm.
Um, but
Do you think it's because he's a maritimer?
maybe it could be. I don't know. It might be a regional quirk, but yeah, I mean, we've had people who think that they're all that.
Mhm.
Like they come into the band and they think they're going to run it now. And
Mhm.
JC and I are just looking at them going, who do you think you are? I mean, we've had this band for X amount of years.
Yeah.
And then there's other people who, I don't like talking about specific people, but
No,
I
no.
mean, there's been personal issues behind the scenes that were beyond my scope. I just want to play rock. And
Yeah.
if you can't, have your stick on the ice when you need to, I mean, like, what are we supposed to do? There's only so much we can do to carry that person until it starts shooting us in the foot
Mhm.
and fucking us up. I mean,
Yeah.
there's been times where someone's a drummer who was in our band's lack of responsibility almost cost us a tour,
Really.
before it started,
Wow.
when we were at the airport. So like that kind of stuff is completely avoidable, but if it happens over and over again, you gotta, you know, cut it loose and
Yeah.
move
Yeah. Yeah.
on.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I've only played in 3-piece bands. Well, I guess like my earliest band was like a 4 or 5 piece or whatever it was. But like there's something about the trio that's just something magical about it. I mean, like some of the greatest bands have been trios. You get your Rush and Triumph, which Triumph to me I think gets not nearly enough accolades as they should. I don't know, did you watch that documentary on Triumph that was on, I think it was Amazon Prime, or can't remember what it was called now, but
I'm in the documentary.
holy fuck, that's
I'm in
right.
it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I only watched it the one time. But yeah. So yeah, I mean,
um,
obviously your feelings are mutual.
yeah, of course. I mean, Triumph. I mean, they're from Toronto. I'm from Toronto, and
Hmm.
so growing up in Toronto, not just in Canada, but Toronto, you had Rush and Triumph. So there's, both are local bands, and both you want to champion. Whereas I think outside of Toronto or outside the province, you got to pick one, which is kind of funny.
Yeah.
And then outside of Canada, they don't even sometimes realize they're both from the same city,
Right.
um, or even from the same country. So it's just kind of an even playing field. But um, when you go back to Zeppelin or Sabbath, I mean, they have the same instrumentation.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's
Trios.
it's
Yeah.
definitely yeah, it's definitely, and sometimes Lizzie as well.
Hmm.
Um, so it's definitely I think the best way to go.
Yeah. Speaking of Lizzie, I know that there's a few songs, That Girl and Raise Some Hell, specifically that when I was driving.
Raise some hell, raise some hell. There's no Lizzie influence there, but that girl definitely. You are my woman, definitely.
Yeah.
City streets, definitely. Definitely Lizzie inspired. I
Yeah.
mean, if I had my way, I could do a whole album that sounds like Lizzie, but of course, then we'd just be nothing but a Lizzie knockoff. So
Right.
the best thing to do is to throw a Lizzie sounding song every now and then. There isn't one on. I don't think there's one on Power Trio, but there was one on A Rock Supreme. So we'll we'll
Hmm.
we'll throw it in there every now and then.
Yeah. Yeah. So to me, like top five of all time, at least. Where would you rank Lizzie?
I mean, in like your personal top 5 favorite bands.
Just yeah, like of all time.
Oh,
They have to be in
I
the
don't know.
conversation, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they're my go-to. they're one of my go-to bands that I listen to when I want to listen to music, but I can't think of anything else to listen to. But I mean, all-time favorite bands, I would say Kiss, Beastie Boys, Sabbath, yeah, Lizzie, um, yeah, uh, they'd be in there. I think definitely top 10. I don't know
Mhm.
about top 5, but definitely top 10.
Yeah. You know, by the way, the Danko and a bag of chips is phenomenal. I hope that comes back on your next tour,
Thanks.
on your next leg.
Yeah, yeah. It's. I should do another one soon.
Where did you
I
come up
have.
with the idea for that?
Well, I wanted to do uh, a Twitch channel. Like they were doing Twitch channels. Like
Mhm.
Matt from Trivium were like. I read this article on him, and he was making $40,000 a month with his Twitch channel during the pandemic, and I was like, what? So my friend Daniel DK, who's an exciter and he was in Diamonds, he has a really popular, successful Twitch channel too.
Mhm.
And so he offered to set me up with whatever needed to be done. And the gimmick was going to be like a bag. I take a new bag of chips, a different brand, and then I play Marvel's Contest of Champions, and that's all it is. You see the screen
Mhm.
because Matt was incorporating video games in his as well, and playthroughs and play-alongs. But I didn't want to do that, so I just wanted to do Contest of Champions by Marvel, and while I eat a bag of chips, and then I listen to a record,
Mhm.
and staging that. I didn't even get. I'm not a gearhead. I don't get all that stuff. So, and it was a pandemic, so Daniel couldn't exactly come over and help set it up. So,
Yeah.
staging that, I was like, I don't know. So I just decided to do these like Instagram posts instead,
Much easier.
and tag the brand of chip, which is basically my goal is to get in with all these chip companies.
Yeah.
But my favorite chip company is the Neil Brothers. Neil Brothers, who are out of Aurora, Ontario, just outside of Toronto, and
Yeah.
they have their chips are amazing. And so I've since become friends with Peter Neil, and they even sent me a big uh, bag of stuff. So and I love their stuff. So
Yeah. 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 We have a chip brand company here based out of New Brunswick, Covered Bridge. They're based out of
oh, I
Heartland.
love Covered Bridge.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love the actually Rich turned me on to those. The dill is actually my favorite out of all their flavors. I
Yeah.
should do. They follow me on Instagram, and I follow them. But I've been meaning to do a Covered Bridge episode.
Yeah.
So
So they can be sometimes difficult to find. Usually, like in, I guess we have a Sobeys. I don't know what that would be called over in Ontario.
it would
It's
be
like,
called Sobeys.
is it? Oh yeah, okay, they're all over.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if it was just a maritime thing.
No.
Yeah, yeah,
And Covered
um,
Bridge is pretty easy to find.
yeah. Not, I mean, more so now, but usually the only place I can find them is at the Sobeys. They don't have them in like the gas station kind of Irvings and stuff like that.
Um, yeah, I don't think they're that accessible
Mhm.
like at gas stations, but I mean, grocery stores, you can find them.
Yeah,
Not
yeah.
every grocery store stocks Neil Brothers, but or maybe they'll stock a bag or two, but they don't stock all their different flavors.
Hmm. Yeah.
Whereas Hard Bite out of BC or out of the West Coast is pretty easy, and they have lots of flavors at all the grocery stores.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I love chips. I did a whole family size bag by myself last night of dill pickle.
Yeah, that's it's dangerous. So
It's
like
dangerous.
the what I usually do is I'll the chips that you see me eat, I'll just those are the only ones I eat out of the bag
Yeah.
on the episode. I don't finish the bag.
Yeah. I had a rehearsal last night, so I was like craving carbs hardcore.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Um so I know you have I've seen, I follow you on Instagram and stuff, so you've got like the luchador masks. Um Quite a collection of them. And I know your WWE featured Royal Rumble, one of
Yeah.
your songs. Are you a big pro wrestling fan, or is that just sort of kind of happened?
Well, I mean, I'm an old school wrestling fan. I don't really follow wrestling anymore, but back when I was a kid, I was rabid wrestling fan, and so I bought all the magazines like Inside Wrestling, Wrestler, Pro Wrestling Illustrated, Main Event. I had all of them every month. I'd buy them all.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I had like stacks of them. So I would go through all the territories and I'd learn all the wrestlers. And eventually, when it kind of amalgamated into the WWF, it would be amazing to watch someone that I'd only read about transfer over to the WWF.
Hmm.
Um, a lot of them didn't, so I never got to see some of those wrestlers wrestle.
Hmm.
But now, with obviously YouTube and the WWE had a series of DVDs that they were putting out that had some of these wrestlers, and then uh, like just underground DVD trading. I've
Hmm.
got tons of those
Yeah.
matches now, so I've got like a whole stack of like old school, kabuki wrestling matches with Gary Hart as his manager, and yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. Um, so what era would that have been that you would have been like your favorite time?
My favorite time is like the early to mid '80s Atlantic wrestling. That's my favorite because it had my favorite wrestlers like uh, Ricky Steamboat, Jay Youngblood, um, uh, Jimmy Boogie Woogie Man Valiant, the Valiant brothers, and the Valiant Kabuki feud was one of my favorites. Yeah. Anyways, yeah, that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. Dickie
Yeah.
Slater. Yeah.
Yeah. Ricky Steamboat. Yeah, because I didn't get all those being like again, small community, small town. We didn't get a lot of access to those, public channels to, you know, see all the different territories and stuff. But when he went over to the WWF, I found Ricky was just on another level, and he still wrestles now. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not this. It's kind of like the whole Ric Flair final match, which was
Yeah.
terrible.
They shouldn't
There's
do it.
no, there's a point where you got to stop. But I saw somewhere online that Ricky hadn't had another match, and he looks phenomenal. Like he
The thing
still
about
looks the
Ricky,
guy.
yeah, I mean, I know he became a superstar in the WWF when he moved there, but
Mhm.
to me, his tag team bouts with Jay Youngblood are on that's my favorite tag team. My favorite tag teams are Ricky Steamboat, Jay Youngblood, the Road Warriors, the Legion of Doom, and then Tony Atlas and Rocky Johnson, which is the Rock's dad.
Yeah,
Those are my three favorite tag teams. I can watch those matches all day long.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, Jay Youngblood, Ricky Steamboat, that's my favorite tag team of all time.
yeah,
And nobody knows about it. Like everybody just knows the dragon and then how he flips on the ropes and doesn't fall out, and
yeah.
it's cool and everything. But he never did that stuff with Jay Youngblood. He was
No,
never doing those karate chops. The
yeah,
way he the way he made it look like he was like Bruce Lee or something. It was kind of yeah. That was the thing is like the WWF really cheesed up a lot of the wrestlers, and I know they had to make it really
yeah,
accessible to a wider audience. But Mid Atlantic Wrestling was pretty raw, and it was a lot of fun.
yeah,
And that's the thing I like about the wrestling from back in the days. Those territories were independent, and so there's a really raw aspect to it, much like punk rock. I mean,
yeah.
that the WWEF or E kind of I don't know, just
Yeah, they washed it all. I mean,
yeah, they
now,
really made it mainstream.
yeah, like, and there was a point where now everyone's like, they're wearing the black trunks. They all look the same. They all act the same. They all have the
Yeah.
same. There's no real character development. The storylines are non-existent, basically.
The cheesy, but back in the day, the WWF was the one that I really wanted to watch because I was
Yeah.
watching Mid Atlantic and I kept hearing about Hogan and Bob Backlund and the Iron Sheik and the Wild Samoans, and that was the stuff that I was really interested in, and then I got an overload of that stuff.
Hmm.
But I was into Bob Backlund too, who was the WWF champion before the Iron Sheik.
Hmm.
Um, everybody forgets about Bob Backlund, you know. So,
Yeah.
anyways, and the
Yeah.
AWA stuff. Like, there's a great new TV show called Tales of the Territories, I think, and The Rock is the narrator, but they get
Okay.
all these different people from back in the day, like the Briscoes
Hmm.
and uh, well, they were the Killer Bees in the WWF, but like
Yeah.
those two guys and Kevin Sullivan and just all these roundtables. It's pretty wild. So
Yeah. Yeah. Is that the one with Freddie Prinze Jr. at the table?
is he? He might be. I'm working my way through it. I'm
Okay.
halfway through the series,
Yeah.
but I haven't seen Freddie Prinze Jr. at all. There's been I watched the episode on Memphis wrestling, Florida wrestling, um, AWA, and the Andy Kaufman Jerry Lawler thing.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'll have to check that out. I'll have to look that up because I'm totally into like
It's
that
on
whole.
Crave. It's on
Okay, I
Crave.
do have Crave. Yeah,
Yeah.
because that's all that anything that's like behind the scenes, how it's made. The big thing for me, like watching the Lord of the Rings trilogy, was when they released those DVDs with like the 8 hours of footage of how they made it and that kind of stuff. That really intrigues me.
Right.
Which is why I always kind of like to find out, how people approach their instrument or their craft, to find out how they make what they make, because I admire what they do and what they create, which is why I asked you to come on the podcast at all.
Right. Right.
But yeah, we could geek out on wrestling and for hours. Speaking of, how it's made, and you went to film school. So your music videos, how much are you involved with the treatment, like the storyboarding or any of that kind of stuff that leads into music videos?
Not much. I mean, the director usually pitches the
Hmm.
idea to us, and we decide as a group.
Hmm.
That's about it. I mean, these days, music videos aren't really a priority for us anymore, and they're
Hmm.
more of an afterthought. So a director can pitch something, but if it's like laden with a lot of storylines and a lot of acting and a lot of setups, we're very not interested. We've done like 40 videos. We're kind of over it. I am, at
Hmm.
least.
Yeah.
So if you notice, the last few videos we've had for the last few albums are either um like done in post, or like
Live
they're not.
footage, or you're not in them.
Yeah, a lot of live footage stuff called live footage and is edited together, or animated stuff, or just that doesn't require us to be there for very long.
Yeah.
And if we're doing a live performance video in some sort of location, chances are it took about 3 hours out of our time
Hmm.
and nothing more.
Which isn't a
um,
lot, which is good.
yeah, because
Yeah.
we don't really, I personally fucking hate doing videos. I think
Hmm.
they're such a pain in the ass, and
Yeah. Like
they
the
really
below
don't
the
yield
belt,
too much.
the below the belt
Sorry.
trilogy, that looked like it took a lot of time. I mean, you had like Lemmy and Elijah Wood and Mike Watt and a whole
Yeah,
bunch
that
of
would
but I
that would
mean,
definitely get us on set for the full days and all that stuff, because
yeah,
it's more than just the music video playing the song.
yeah,
Um,
calling in
this
favors for people to show up.
Yeah, well, we
you know
did, and
yeah, yeah,
the directors did too. So that definitely made it, that kept our attention and kept us interested.
hmm,
Definitely,
yeah,
and it was exciting. It was just simply exciting to have all these different people on set, and hanging out and getting to know them, and then being associated with us and working with our band. So that was cool. But
yeah,
I mean, if we were to do it again, definitely would be down for it. But it's also very costly and time
yeah,
consuming. So
yeah. And like you say, the return isn't there as it was before. Like there's no much music or MTV that plays music videos anymore, so it's
no,
yeah,
it's just YouTube
you're just
or
gonna go on
what
YouTube.
have you. I
Yeah.
don't even know if there's any other access
No.
to it.
Mm,
I mean, it might be like a video that you can watch on Apple Music or Spotify, but
Yeah.
I mean, that doesn't really get numbers. People don't really watch that. I don't think. I
Yeah.
don't. So
Yeah. Probably my favorite video, um, at least in recent times, that of yours is the video for Dance Dance Dance. Like, to me,
yeah,
that was such an empowering, beautiful video for women. Like, and I find that
apparently
with
not.
the what's
we
that?
got a lot of we got a lot of criticisms for being
Really?
sexist because yeah,
Oh
which
man, people don't
there was
understand.
yeah they don't
They just don't
understand.
get
And
it.
those three dancers, that was their own choreography. I
Yeah.
mean, they're just a dance troupe or a dance group in Sweden, and the direct it was all shot in Sweden. The director Amir is a friend of ours for a long time, and he's uh, he's become quite. He did all the helicopters videos, and he's become quite a movie director in his own right. And he
Hmm.
was actually just in town, November, December in Toronto, filming the Borja Salming TV series. Um, and so he was in town, and yeah, so he did that, and it was a long time coming to work with him. So it was great. I love that video.
Yeah. Like I said, to me, it was so empowering and beautiful. And I mean, people that don't see that, they really need to, like, you know, check check themselves out, because
Oh, I
it's,
have
to me,
no
it's
time for
clear,
these people.
right?
I don't have any time for anyone who doesn't understand that and who would make judgment without knowing all the facts. Those women showed up on set in their own outfits. No one
Hmm.
dressed them, and they did their own choreography. No one told them how to dance. It's
Hmm.
their thing. That's what they do. And Amir just shot it.
Yeah.
So
It
that
was,
was yeah
yeah, to me, it was
stupid.
amazing.
Uh,
And do you find, like, because I find that with your lyrics as well, like, I find a
mhm.
lot of your lyrics, like, yeah, you're talking about sex and drugs and rock and roll and stuff because you're a rock band, but I find a lot of songs are very lyrically empowering for women, to me at least, because you're talking
I
about
mean,
love, you're
there's nothing
talking about,
wrong, but I mean, there's a but with your comment, and there's nothing wrong with singing about sex.
well,
I
no.
think a lot of people are I enjoy the fact that I do that, and you still can't. You can sing about sex without being sexist, and
Hmm.
I've always challenged anyone who accuses me of being sexist in my lyrics, and in what it shows is more their hangups and their issues projecting, and sometimes they're racism projecting onto me,
Mm.
and there's only one line that I can say. You know, I've said I'm not going to say the song because I don't want people to like, ah, gotcha.
Yeah,
Um,
no.
but at the same time, I mean, I wrote that when I was 23.
Hmm.
I'm not 23 anymore, and it was just a simple line to rhyme with the rhyme before.
Right. Yeah,
It
yeah.
was stupid, and but ever since then, or even before then, there's been nothing. And that's not a deliberate thing. It's just a natural thing because I don't consider myself sexist. I've even gone as far as to publicly state I'm a feminist, even
Hmm.
though that really pisses off a lot of guys, and
I'm a
raises a
feminist.
lot of raises a
Yeah.
lot of eyebrows because people think that you have an ulterior motive by saying
No.
that. But when you break down the definition, I'm for equality of the sexes, and
Like,
that's the
that's
bottom
that.
line. That's what
That's
it
it.
is.
Yeah.
You can call it another term, and I'll use that term, but that's the term. And so,
Hmm.
you know, there's a lot of people over the years who've you know raised the issue with my lyrics, but they don't raise the same issue with other bands that have equal, if not more, questionable lyrics
No,
or problematic
absolutely.
lyrics. So I always find that interesting,
Yeah.
but I mean that's a discussion that can lead to another few hours talk that I'd
Hmm.
rather not get into. But it is interesting. I note everything
Hmm.
and I quietly note it. That's all.
Yeah, yeah.
Sometimes I will say stuff on Twitter because I just can't handle it anymore, or I do it to embarrass or shame um, incels,
Hmm.
misogynists, racists, sexists, and homophobics.
Yeah.
But that's about it.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that I admire about you is that you do use your voice and your platform to speak out on issues that need to be addressed. And then I don't want to say like you say your piece and you drop your mic, but a lot of people don't have that platform to say things that should be said or call people out that need to be called out. And I
I
don't want to
just
go into the
find
whole
that
monster truck thing. I just mean
no,
like, you know,
oh,
but
that's
just that, but people
that's
do
a
need to be
totally
called
different
out.
thing.
Hmm.
I mean, I did call them out. I mean, in that situation, I did call them out. Um, I heard behind the scenes that there's a few reasons or a few things that happened that they ended up associated with all that. But these days, it's very polarizing,
Hmm.
and unfortunately, being quiet on all this it means you're complicit on all this. And I definitely don't want to
No.
be don't want to feel number one feel like I'm being complicit, but also seen as being complicit by just going, hey, come to our show, buy our new album, we have t-shirts for sale, and that's it. During this polarizing time of we're living in,
Hmm.
especially when if it leans a certain way, I'm going to be affected negatively, and my family members will be affected negatively if it leans in a way that we've seen it. I mean, there's a rise in white nationalism. There's an uptick on misogyny. I
Hmm.
mean, it's insane,
Hmm.
and so that needs to be said.
Hmm.
That needs to be at least you come out and say something, and confirm to a lot of people, not all people, but a lot of people who are thinking the same thing, and make them feel like less alone.
Yeah.
That's all I do. I know my tweets are not going to change the world. They're like
No.
half a drop in a huge bucket, but at least I get it off my chest, clear my conscience, and maybe
Hmm.
someone gets affected by it positively.
You need to adapt and change and become a better person. And I have a tattoo that I'm planning on getting covered up because I don't want people to associate it with how that person was in their life. Like the tattoo means something to me, because as a kid, growing up, I watched, we were talking about wrestling, Ultimate Warrior back then, his message was, be a warrior, live that warrior life and affect change and be good and all that. But then finding out later on that he was a homophobe and all this other stuff, that I don't want that associated with me. So I plan on getting that covered up because I don't want that misrepresentation onto me.
Yeah, I mean, I would say like in that certain situation, if I was, let's say, to see that on you, I wouldn't go, "Whoa, what's going on here? This is
Hmm.
questionable."
Hmm.
I would understand that this is why a lot of people don't get is I would understand the time and place you got it. I would understand that people change, and you have to allow people to change, and you can't hold them to a standard that wasn't around 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. You just can't do that. Um, it's so nuanced. There's just so many sides and shades to it that it's not black and white all
Hmm.
the time.
Hmm.
You know, I mean, if you had a tattoo of Hitler, and you're like, I used to think that way, and now I changed. Then I would say, yeah, you should maybe cover that up.
Hmm.
But I wouldn't go. I wouldn't call if you had definitely changed your ways. I also wouldn't, and it's genuine. I wouldn't say like you're a terrible person.
Hmm.
You're still a terrible person. I see it. I see that a lot. Like
Hmm.
nobody lets people change, and that's why it's so polarized to this day.
Hmm.
Or these days it's so polarized. And
Hmm.
also, when you're proven wrong, you have to double down so you don't lose face, and that
Yeah.
is just the worst. Nobody can just go, oh really, I didn't think about it that way. Like nobody says that.
Yeah.
Nobody takes back or steps back. It's terrible. That's the worst part of this whole thing.
Hmm.
Even though they know that maybe they're wrong, or and they don't take a step back and go, you know what, I was wrong.
Hmm.
And they don't do that because also they'll still be held accountable for it, and
Hmm.
everyone's too scared to go through that. And I understand that as well.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
people double down.
Yeah. And a lot of, like, especially in the media, it's clickbait. They take things out of context. They're all looking for like a sound bite to, oh, like you said, like that gotcha moment where it's like, oh, I got you there, and trying to make something out of nothing.
Yeah, there's a
Yeah.
lot of that.
There's
And
a lot of
I
that.
hate to be one of those people who goes like, fake news or the media is this and the media is that, because there's good media too,
Yeah.
informative sources. So yeah, it's really weird.
Hmm. You just have
Like,
to search it out and not just take what you're given for granted.
but I just go by the compass of don't be racist, sexist, or homophobic, and that's it. I mean,
That's
people
it.
go, "Oh, you're active, you're this, you're that." I'm like, no, I'm
No.
just three things, and that's it.
Yeah.
It's
Be a
not
good human.
hard, it's not difficult, and I'm not trying to be better or than
Hmm.
anyone else or trying to like be a saint. I'm just like, this is wrong and or lame, and I'm gonna say something about it.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah. No, I
because
agree.
eventually it'll affect all of us.
Yeah. Just be a good human. Just be good to other humans, and just live your best life, day to day, affect change. I had a guest on before, like, 5 foot circle. Like, if you live in a way that you want to leave the 5 foot circle around you better than when you found it,
I mean, I
you affect
guess I
people
don't
that
even
way.
live like that. I don't
You know.
even live like that. I just try not to be a dick. Um, and that's it. I
Hmm.
don't really think about what I'm going to leave or if it's better than before. I just try not to be a dick. You know,
That's a good
try
rule.
is the
It's a
try
good
is
rule.
the yeah. Try is the like sometimes I can't help it, but
Yeah.
we all
Well,
can't.
yeah, yeah.
So
All right. Well, I want to be respectful of your time. I do have a quick segment that I call the crash questions. So they're just kind of quick
okay.
fires. It's not anything major. It's nothing that's breaking the mold, because other people have similar things. So anyway, but the first question I always ask anyone is, do you prefer cake or pie?
Probably pie.
Good man. Yeah,
Yeah,
cake is where it's at.
for kids. No, pie's where it's at.
Yeah.
Because you can I love apple pie, and B, pizza is actually a pie.
There you go.
So
Yeah, and you get
yeah,
savory pies, meat pies, shepherd's pie. That's just pie.
I can't eat shepherd's pie, but
Okay.
yeah,
Um, so what's better? Chufa de Valencia Horacha or Kylie Minogue's wine?
I'm not a drinker, but Kylie Minogue's wine is actually really good, and actually, I actually do like it a lot. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't drink it. I'm not a drinker. I'll have a glass of wine with dinner, and I sometimes don't even finish that. But yeah, I like
Yeah.
I like her wine.
And I just realized I mispronounced it. It's horchata, right?
Oh, I thought you were doing some sort of like red wine brand from
No,
Spain or
like,
something.
yeah, yeah, no.
Uh, horchata. Oh, damn.
Yeah.
No, I prefer horchata. Yeah,
Okay.
definitely horchata.
All right. Yeah, yeah. I've never, I mean, I don't drink dairy milk. I mean, I'll have cheese or whatever, but like, as far as milk goes, it's usually it's oat or an almond milk or something like that. So is that similar to that kind of a milk? Like, it's not a dairy product.
It's an almond. It's almond.
Okay.
It's got almond. I don't know what's in it, but I have to assume it's probably just yeah, maybe almond milk or all depends who makes it. I mean,
Hmm.
there's all kinds. There's you can get a lower brand in a grocery store or a really high end one. We had the two. What is it? I can't remember the brand, but they were actually sending it to the clubs we were playing in Spain for one tour on ice. They would send it. It was amazing. It tasted amazing.
Chufa de
Tastes
Valencia.
yeah, and then it tasted better than the Chufi, which is basically the kids' drink you get in all the
Oh,
grocery stores in Spain. So
right.
you can taste the difference, but it's pretty much the same drink.
Hmm. Is that like the difference between chocolate milk and a yoo-hoo?
I don't know what a Yoo-hoo tastes like, but
It's
I
basically
mean,
carbonated, watered down milk. It's weird.
That sounds disgusting.
It is.
Carbonated milk.
It's
That
kind
sounds
of like that, yeah.
disgusting.
Well, it's not really a milk product, but it's like a chocolate drink, but it's kind of fizzy. It's weird. Anyway, I've only had it
Okay.
whenever I've been down in the States, and I've never had it here in Canada. So
I've seen it here, but
okay,
I don't.
yeah. Um, so if you so if you were hitting the road, either being like in a van on tour, and you had one CD stuck in your stereo that you didn't want, what would it be?
That I didn't want.
Yeah.
Oh, there's lots. Probably like that band with a Shakira CD, or that band from the guys who sings "Moves Like Jagger," whatever that guy Adam Levine.
Oh, Maroon 5.
Maroon 5. Yeah, those are. There's a lot that would drive me nuts, but those two especially. Those are the
Yeah,
ones that come to my mind first, so they've got to be at the top of the list, I suppose.
I suppose. Yeah. Yeah.
Or mumble rap, which I hate.
Oh, I've never
Yeah.
listened to it. I mean, I've heard
Uh,
clips, and that was enough. So yeah.
yeah.
um, just a couple more. So if you had a time machine, so that you could go to any concert or event and experience it in person, where would you go?
Probably do the Kiss Love Gun tour.
Cool.
Maybe Madison Square Garden. But I mean, I don't know
Yeah.
the specific gig, but that tour probably like Love Gun.
Hmm. Yeah,
That's
you're a
when.
big Kiss fan. Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably my favorite Kiss album. I don't know if it is, but I just know that that's when they were firing on all cylinders for me, and man, that would have been a lot of fun to attend.
Mm, yeah, I definitely agree.
Or
Um,
any Kiss concert, like yeah, around that whole era up to then for sure. Like from from Kiss Alive up to Dynasty, or yeah, Dynasty to from Kiss Alive 1 to Dynasty. I would have loved to have seen
mm,
even the Dynasty tour. That would
yeah.
have been awesome.
Cool. All right. Well, gonna wrap it up. Now, do you have any plans for another book or bringing the podcast back at all?
Yeah, I mean, I have plans to do the podcast again. In fact, I'm like, I've got three people that I could do episodes with that are pretty heavy, and one of them came to me. So
Okay.
I definitely want to start it up again. I just have a lot on my plate
Hmm.
right now, and it's hard because I was on a roll, just doing it. We were touring, we were this, we were that, and then the
Hmm.
pandemic happened, and it
Yeah.
kept me busy. But it got me to the, and then there's things in my personal life that happened, and I just couldn't do it. And so that was in December of 2020, and the last official episode I really did was with Donald Tardy of Obituary. And after that, I said, okay, I'm going to take the Christmas off. And then I just like, I can't even go back. I just don't
Hmm.
have time.
Yeah.
So I've been meaning to kickstart it. There's like three people that, yeah. I mean, I think it was even yesterday or the day before I got a message going, so and so heard, the episode of this and he wants to be on it. I'm like, are you kidding me? So I'd love to talk to that guy because I'm a
Yeah.
huge, ultra huge fan.
Hmm.
But I mean, if that isn't enough of a kick in the ass to get it started again, I don't know what is.
Hmm.
And then another book is I definitely want to do that, but again, it falls in line with a podcast. I was able to write all these articles because we were touring, and life was a little easier for me, like here at home, and so yeah. I mean, the pandemic in a way happened for me personally, things in my personal life, and the pandemic, I was home. I could take care of certain things.
Hmm.
And I wince at the idea that if the pandemic didn't happen, how would I do all this? So
Hmm.
that's the reason why it's taken me out of my game. I also have another noise album, waiting in the wings to complete.
Hmm.
It's my follow up to the first Throat Funeral album. Half the next Throat Funeral album is done. It's been done for over a year. I just don't have the time to finish it. So there's a lot on my plate beyond the band, but connected to the band,
Yeah.
that I can't do right now.
Mm-hmm. Well, I hope you do bring it back, as a big fan of the podcast and a big fan
Thanks.
of what you've got in the pipe. Can't wait to hear the new Danko album when that comes out at some point. If we get another one.
Thanks. Yeah.
So,
Oh yeah, of course. I mean,
yeah.
we're always like, that's how we tour. I mean, that's, the only reason you can tour is if you have a new
Yeah.
album, and we like making them, so that's kind of easy to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Awesome. Well, again, thank you very much for being on my podcast, and I wish you nothing but the best in all aspects of what you've got going on.
Well, thanks a lot. Nice talking to you. And if you see Rich before I do, say hi.
Yeah, I'll be doing one of these with him tomorrow.
Oh,
we've got
perfect. Then,
a
oh,
little
we'll tell
project
him
we're
I say
working
hi.
on. All right.
Oh,
Well,
great. Okay, sounds good.
as always, that was a lot of fun. I really can't thank Danko enough for being so generous with his time and joining me on my little podcast. He and the guys are on their way to the UK to do a run of shows with The Darkness and Blackstone Cherry, talk about a lineup. If you haven't listened to the latest album, Power Trio, which, as mentioned in the podcast, was nominated for a Juno, do it. Go do it now. So, yeah, anyway, again, thanks, Danko, for being on the podcast. I hope you all enjoyed it. So I'll have all the links to the social media in the comments as usual for anyone to access. So that'll do it for this episode. So until next time, please take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and yeah, bye for now.